Good morning, everyone. Scooter at Granville Guitars coming to you live from the Granville Guitars World Headquarters here in lovely St. Petersburg, Florida. It's a wonderful Tuesday morning, and I wanted to update an amplifier that started as a tragedy and has ended up really, really cool. It's called the Granville Mystery Marvel, and if you want to hear the whole sordid backstory on the amplifier, you can go back to the first video that I made for this amplifier that talked about the first wave of work that was done to it. Essentially, it started out life as a Hot Rod Deluxe amplifier by Fender. And it's gone through a lot of mutations to the point now where the only thing remaining of the original amp is the cabinet and the chassis. That's it. Everything else has been replaced in one way or another. I finished it up and used the original transformers and had a pretty good sounding amp. I was fairly happy with it. Ended up turning it over to our good friend Matteo Olivo, who took it out and gigged with it for some time. And then I decided I wanted it back, so I made arrangements with Matteo, and the amp came back. And I plugged it in, and I was a little underwhelmed with it. There was nothing wrong with it. It just didn't quite have the, let's call it, ass that I thought it should have. It didn't really kick hard enough. And after looking at the design, and something I kind of suspected in the back of my mind when I first did this build, and I mentioned it in the first video, is that there might be a possibility that the transformers might not be suitable for what I was trying to do. If you haven't seen the other video, what I was trying to do was make the amp into a single channel blackface bassman combo with a 112 speaker on board, something that I find is very unusual and thought would be pretty handy. So that's how it started. And now it's back, and I have done a bunch of stuff to it, a fair amount of stuff to it. So here's the front side of it, and let's flip it around to the back. And let's see, there's the back, pretty much the same as you would expect. I'm going to zoom in and show you. I don't think these plates were ready when I made the other video. My good friend Jason Jennings helped me with these plates, both the front plate and the rear plate, to kind of spiff it a little bit. And that kind of makes it a little more fun. Anyway, let's pop the back plate off, shall we? Okay, it still looks pretty much the same as it if you go and look at the first video. The innards are pretty much the same. Let's take a look over here at the preamp just real quick. If you want more in-depth coverage, go and check out the first video, and then it'll cover a lot of this. But the board itself is largely unchanged until we get over here to the rectifier section, which I had to change how it behaves. And you'll see that in the center there. We have the rectifier diodes here, 6 of them, and the bias supply is right here. And the bias potentiometer is above, right up there, mounted to the chassis because that was a convenient place to put it. Don't know if I'll leave it there. I may move it in future, but for now, that's where it is. The biggest change, and you can see it sticking its ugly head out right there, is that I put a twin reverb, a Hammond vintage style twin reverb power transformer into the amplifier, which had been living in my shop for a number of years now. I got it for a repair and didn't need it. And as so often happens, things kind of sit around and they gather dust. And when this came back, I thought, okay, I'm gonna upgrade the transformers here. We're gonna do it. And initially, I thought very hard about just putting basement style transformers in, which are a slight size and tonal upgrade from what comes in the Hot Rod Deluxe. But I wanted a leap. I wanted a real. I wanted more of a difference in tonality than what I was getting. I wanted more headroom. I wanted more out of it, basically, more of everything. So that's what we ended up going with, and had to change the wiring slightly. All of the filtering duties are handled by the same capacitors because those were intended for a basement style amplifier, and that could very well have been part of why the amp didn't really sound quite like I wanted it to in retrospect. If I had done the filtering more like the power supply that's in the Hot Rod Deluxe, might have been a better outcome with those transformers. But I wasn't thinking in those terms. I was thinking big. So that's what I went with initially, and basically chose transformers to suit it. Now, unfortunately, that's all you can see of the power transformer, and the output transformer I selected is up under there on the other side of the chassis, and unfortunately you can't see that either. But what I selected was a classic tone transformer. It's a project transformer they have on their website. The number is escaping me right now, but they call it a 50 or 60 watt output transformer. So the way I've got it configured, it's probably closer to 50 than 60, but we've got a ton of power on tap, both in the power supply and in the output transformer. So it just gives the amp more breathing room, more tonality. It works the JBL speaker that I put in it much more, much closer to what it wants to be. Let's see if I can zoom in here on the JBL. It's a D131, a vintage one that I had reconed over at Simply Speakers before they stopped reconing, unfortunately. I managed to sneak in right at the end, but they did a fine job, and the speaker sounds wonderful. The tubes are still the same. JJ's all the way across, 312AX7s and a couple of 6L6s. And I don't know if you can see in here. I mean, I had a lot better camera angles on the first video, on the initial build, but none of this has changed. All of the preamp wiring and all of that stuff is the same. I didn't change anything there. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to try and use. There's an unused triode in one of the preamp tubes because it is the normal channel of a Bassman, and that leaves me with one unused triode, which I may press into service for a drive control one day. But I plugged the amp in and hit the front end of it with a copper drive and kind of forgot about that concept because it just loves overdrive pedals in general, but my copper drive in particular really works well with it. So that's really it. It's kind of boring inside. I just reconfigured the power supply wiring to suit the new transformer, and of course had to open up the hole in the chassis a fair amount to fit the new larger transformer, and just reconfigured the rectifier, and everything else pretty much has remained the same. But what I get on the other end is a much bigger sound, much more flexible. One of the cool things about the amp is that it sounds fantastic at all volume levels. You crank it and it sounds fat and wonderful and full, and it'll crunch a little bit when you're really hitting it hard. But you can also get a really pleasing sound at a fairly low volume. I had a customer plugged into it yesterday to test out a couple of guitars that I had just set up for him, and I was very impressed at how good it sounds at a very low volume. So what I've created here is kind of a different beast. It's not like anything Fender's ever done. It probably bears the closest resemblance, honestly, to something more like a Rivera or a Mesa Boogie, back when Randall was shoving larger transformers into smaller combos. I'm not treading on new ground here. this is a well-worn pathway, but I'm kind of figuring some of this out for myself and what I like. Some of the things I thought I liked about certain amp designs are things that don't necessarily make sense to me now, and I'm, there's always more to learn where all of this stuff is concerned. It's a learning process. So I'm going to put the back on this thing. I'm going to plug into it and let you hear what it sounds like. How about that? All right. We're ready to hear this beastie. Setting these shots up is a pain in the ass. Guitar. Today, this is the debut of the Granville Blue Betty. I've been tinkering around with this thing for a while now, trying to get it to where I like it, and it's been tough. I've been through 7 sets of pickups trying to find the set that works in this guitar. And finally ended up with the DiMarzio Steve Morse neck and bridge, and I'm enjoying them. They're finally giving me what I want. Maple neck, rosewood board, bone nut, Clouson tuners. It's a Mexican Fender body with a Kaler on board, and of course the aforementioned Morse pickups, and it also has the EMG afterburner gain boost right on board too, so I can have all kinds of fun right off the guitar. Anyway, let's hear what the clean sound is. We're running straight into the Granville Mystery Marvel by way of the Granville Big Stick, which is my triple overdrive. You can see another video on my page for more information about that one. I've kind of been using that as a demo because it's easy to have my 3 most popular circuits all in one box. But there's the clean sound. That's with all controls on the amp at noon and the bright switch on. It has this wonderful sustaining quality almost all over the fretboard. We're talking about the amp now. And it will get louder. Like I said, that's it's 7 on the scale of 12. It's at noon, straight up 12 basically. One of the things that bothered me about it, the way it was with the other transformers, is that I thought the suitable, in the room gigging volume was with the volume all the way up, and it bugs me when you have to turn any control on any device all the way up. There should be somewhere to go. You shouldn't have to turn it all the way up. So that's what drove me back to the schematics and started looking at different options and trying to decide what I wanted to do. But that's both pickups. Neck pickup. Bridge pickup. Both pickups. Neck pickup. There was an off-key note in there. How did that happen? Like I said, that's at half volume. Let's check out the response on the tone controls here. We'll start with treble. Pretty wide ranging. Okay, now mid range. I'm still kind kind of tweaking that one. I may change out that mid cap. The JBL speaker has different requirements for a mid-range cap. You tend to have to go extreme with it because it's such a full-range speaker, but it's all right for now. And then I'll go down to the low E string for the bass control. I've been tending to like the bass rolled off just slightly. Let the bass player have those frequencies. All right, now let's goose the volume a little bit. Now I'm up about 3/4. Go up from there. And there's pegged. Which is, I A-B'd it yesterday against my Marshall 412. And it's just as loud, so it'll keep up with a Marshall 412. And that's kind of what I want. I wanted the ability to go that loud. Now, let's take it back down where I initially had it. About noon. And let's see what it does with a pedal here. We'll start with the copper drive. See, I've got a deluxe Mr. Neutron here. And since it's a deluxe Mr. Neutron, let's try it with the volume to the other volume control. I love that switchable volume controls. If you don't know about the Deluxe Neutron and the Deluxe Copper Drive, go seek out the videos for those pedals. Essentially, very briefly, it's an overdrive that has a foot switchable volume control. You have two volume controls. You can foot switch between the two. So you can set it up like a boost, but it doesn't change the tone at all. All you've done is turned up the volume control on your pedal with a foot switch and then gone back to the way it was. It's a preset volume control. All right, let's hear the Spiny Norman. He's a nasty little beast. Again, it's nice, clean, sustainy, swirly kind of a... Does it sound like a Bassman? No, it doesn't sound like a Bassman. It actually sounds a little more like a twin reverb, but it's a smaller sound. It's more direct and a little more compressed than a twin. Let's try hitting it with some afterburner gain boost here and see what it does with just a little clean boost. A little more. Telling you people, EMG Afterburner, get them. Put them in all your guitars. It's the handiest little device ever. You can have, say, well, let's see what it does here. See, I've got my copper drive, and I've got... It allows you to jump things out just a little bit. And sometimes, like when you're easing into a solo, you don't want a sudden rush. You don't want a foot switch. You know, you want something that you... back out of it. Like I said, I'm a big fan, I'm a big believer, EMG afterburner. You can put them in any guitar. It doesn't have to be an EMG equipped guitar. They'll work with any pickups you can put in a guitar. You just have to add a battery, and that's a downer for some people, but I love them. They're in all my guitars. That's really kind of it for today. Just wanted to kind of update all of you on the Mystery Marvel. I had gotten some letters and some questions about it, you know, what I did, etc. And this is how it's ended up, and it's a lot of fun. It's a gigging machine. You could cover so much ground with this thing that it's... I'm really pleased with how it is now. I was pleased with it before. It was good enough, but yeah, being away from it for a while, and it came back, and I'm like, I need to delve a little further with this. So that's what we did, and that's what we have, the Granville Mystery Marvel Amplifier. If you have any questions about anything we do here at Granville Guitars, you can seek us out on the web at www.granvilleguitars.com or Facebook, Instagram, and also our blog over at WordPress, A View from the Granville Bench. That's all I know for today, the Granville Mystery Marvel.